rock and roll. All right. Coach Todd, good to have you. And really the reason, I guess, we're doing this, we're kind of testing out our podcast, but I do think this would be kind of a cool thing to do, kind of get into FCA and, you know, your involvement with the program and kind of where you see things going. So first off, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Name's Todd Polhemus. I've been in sports my entire life. Grew up with a dad that coached in college and then had a training facility. So sports has been a lifesaver for me in a lot of ways. So that kind of led into sports training, then led into FCA. And that's kind of how I got started in sports specifically. I use sport as a way to minister into people's lives and speaking in their lives, which I think we all should do. We should be who we say we are as best we can and authentic, not perfect people. As you know, I'm not perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes and continue to do it. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit of my background.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way we know Coach Todd is we've been working out with him since, I don't know, probably when we were in like fourth grade or something.
Since you were 8.
Yeah. Long time.
Mark was walking around with a stick in his hand at 6.
That's it.
Falling over his feet and getting hit with balls, trying to play with older kids. So it's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. And, you know, over the years, the more that I think about it, I just really, really believe that a lot of your training methods are super elite. And Coach Todd coached, you know, a lot of guys around Birmingham that ended up being really, really successful, you know, whether it be football or pretty much any sport, men's and women's, but really interesting combination. So it was a lot of strength and explosive work, you know, weights and all that kind of stuff. But then he paired everything. Almost every session had footwork involved, which I think is probably, as an athlete, you know, you got to have the strength and the explosiveness, but the footwork, you can't replace it. You know, if you're on the football field and you've got to run a route, like the route has to be crisp. You have to have good feet. Yep. And we see a lot of guys, you know, in lacrosse, and we're going to, you know, start talking about lacrosse in a little bit, but, you know, especially in lacrosse, like you've got to have shake, you know, you've got to be able to cut, you know, you've got to be able to, you know, have the proper footwork, and that sets you up for success.
Yeah, no, it's kind of one of those things you see that, and it's like the foundation, right, of most of these sports is your footwork. The problem is there's a disconnect because you see a lot of people that say, I'm going to do the footwork, but they don't have the strength ratios where they need them. They're not neurologically at the capability of doing what some of these higher end athletes are. So that's kind of one of the things. It's one of those, I'm going to do footwork all the time and all the time and all the time. But if you can't execute it like you want to, it's because usually of lack of strength, or you have some neurological stuff that we have to work on and kind of refire and get tuned up. So it's a really cool trade, to be honest. But to get great at footwork, you have to be able to be explosive. You have to have power. Your core has to be solid. You also have to understand your sport, right? Dodging in lacrosse is similar to running routes, but it's not the same, right?
Yep.
And you know that well. And then you got the side of lacrosse where you just got to eat the stick, right? And just take it and run through it. And that's counterintuitive, right? So mentally, we've got to be at a specific space to be able to do that. And if you're not strong enough, once you take the impact, you're moving off point. So it's going to change everything. So there's a lot of things when we deal with footwork, specifically for lacrosse, we have to address if we truly want to be great. And we can do it. Like yourself, you pretty much in high school could dodge on anybody, right? Because you were strong, because your strength ratios were right. You were fast. You had the ability to stick a foot in the ground, you and Mark. And that's what separated you guys. But it also took a lot to get you there.
Yep.
It wasn't just like I did footwork. It was I'm doing the appropriate weight training for age development, and doing plyometrics and doing a lot of these things, biomotor stuff that we have to do to make sure that we're in a good place. And then we have to rest and stretch and diet. And man, there's a ton to be a great athlete. People just sometimes don't understand the choices you have to make. You have to give up going to the movies every once in a while, right? Yep. We want you to have a life. We want you to love the game. But there are sacrifices, as both of y'all know, that have to be great, to be honest.
Yeah.
And either way, we're going to help you with FCA. If you want to be okay or good, or we're going to do everything we can to help that athlete. But when someone comes to say, I want to be great, I don't know exactly if they know what they're asking sometimes, because there's a workload that has to happen specifically for lacrosse.
Yeah. And I think, another thing for, young players to think about is, like in any area of life, you've got to look at, the successful people in that field. If you start to look at, the college scene, the professional scene, every one of these guys are elite athletes.
Yep.
Absolutely elite athlete. I mean, they're strong, they're fast, they've got explosiveness, they got shake, they've got a lot of, motor skills when it comes to, shooting, when it comes to, moving your body so that we can get the best shot. And, I just really think that, it's important to, look up to those guys and, try to emulate it.
Yeah. And I think you like stories?
Yeah.
All right. So I got a pretty cool one. So a lot of times people will say these things, and they're, faith's a big part of my life. And so I like to bring everything back to what I believe is the rock, which is Christ. And individual came and was talking and said, hey, man, like, I want to be really good, but I've been praying and it's just not happening, right? So I just gave him a story, right? Stories are awesome. It's how Christ did what he did. So there's two farmers, right? They both want to plant seeds. They both want to grow, right? No rain. None, zero. It's not raining, months, right? One farmer prepared his fields in the dirt where there was no rain. The other one was praying, hey, God, send rain and I'll prepare. Which one do you think is ready when the rain comes?
Probably the dirt guy.
The guy that's been plowing his fields, right? And he was praying too and waiting, right? But there's a part of this that we have to understand. We have to be willing to plow even when there's no rain. And so I think that in athletics, I think that's a great kind of picture, right? Where we don't see the results. We don't see all the things, right? And that's the hard part of being able to just stick with the process, bear with it, and then suddenly the harvest comes, right? When it rains and God aligns certain things to happen. And if we take that approach in life, but if we take it in sports, it can be applied pretty directly.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of times where you're like, why am I doing pull-ups? Why am I doing sit-ups? Why am I taking 100 shots with my right and 100 with the left? I don't see it. It's really not that vastly improved. And then suddenly 2 months later, your velocity's higher. You're moving quicker. You're stronger. You can stay on the field longer. Your D-midi reps are like super legit, So it's, it's one of those things that's kind of cool. But
yeah, and I think a lot of times these younger athletes, I think, when obviously puberty hits, and then, it could be a sophomore to a senior in high school. I mean, we're seeing like massive physical development. And so if you do put in that, footwork in, if you put in the, strength and the explosive work and the lacrosse work, I mean, you will see massive jumps. And it's not necessarily a hill type, level of improvement. It's usually a stair step. A lot of these guys end up, it just one day it just snaps and they get it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you're working all these different pieces of the puzzle, right? And it's like, I got 4 or 5 different pieces of the puzzle. They don't fit yet, right? And then once they fit, it's a drastic change where literally it's one of the best compliments we would get when we train an athlete is, I don't even know who this kid is. Did he just join this roster? And you're like, dude, he's been on the team for 3 years. But in the last year, he's put in the work. And he's like, he looks like a brand new player. And you're like, yeah, because he's done the work. That is a sign of something really special because development stages are different for everybody, right? Like the way I developed, I was called a Ninja Turtle because I was slow, when I was younger. Like my dad literally beat me up saying that all the time, you're a turtle. It drove me crazy. I was actually mad. He should have never done that. It was messed up. But eventually got to the point where, I actually became a good athlete, right? Because I kept the process. I kept going. I kept working, and suddenly when I'm a junior or senior in high school, people are like, dude, you're athletically a stud. And I'm like, well, 3 years ago, you just told me I was a turtle. So like, what am I? You know what I mean? Like, that's the truth, right? That's reality. That's the way it was, and, but it took a process even for me when I was developing. And it's kind of one of the things that I hold on to really well and admire out of people, where no matter where they're at developmentally, right? Let's just try to get better, because God gives us talents and skills, and if we don't grow them, prepare for that harvest, it's just not going to happen. So I challenge everybody, prepare for the harvest, right? And it might not be mine; it might be Wilson, you doing something, or Mark or something like that, off of something I've done, and that's even better, to be honest, because we're called to serve and to help others. That's what I believe. So I'm just grateful to be able to do it, to be honest.
Yep. All right, on to FCA. So, let's first start with this. Coach, how did you get into coaching?
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, I was born, and then I saw my dad coach in college, and so I grew up in a coach's house. I literally, since I was like 5 years old, wanted to coach. So it was one of those where normally you have no idea. I really did want to coach. I wanted to do things kind of like what my dad was doing, to be honest. And so I kind of followed in his footsteps. And then I started seeing how it made an impact on my life, the good and the bad coaches, right? Because they're going to make a mark. We only talk about, great coaches, but the bad coaches also pull a lot of people away from the game.
Yep.
They hurt a lot of guys too, right? So I think coaching is a skill set. It can be learned. It's not something you're born with. But since I was about 5 or 6, I always, I want to be a coach. I want to be a coach. I want to help in this space. And coaching was a safe place for me because I have dyslexia. I have learning disabilities. So classroom work was brutal, right? So sports was an escape. It saved my life in a lot of ways. So the aspect of like coaching, getting on the field, that's where that's my happy place.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I love coaching, man. It's a privilege.
It is. And, on talking about coaching, we've got a lot of young coaches in the program, absolutely amazing guys at FCA. And I would say, thinking about my own journey and then looking at great coaches like Coach Todd, and then, watching college football, I've been looking at Kalen DeBoer and some of these other guys, and it's really, really interesting. You think, you're a great leader when you start out and you have all these great ideas, but then you just reality hits. You're dealing with young guys that aren't always necessarily the most mature, and I don't know. It's really interesting the development that coaches will take. But what's been your experience about that? And what would you, I guess, how would you teach young coaches how to be great coaches?
Yeah, I realize you're going to make a lot of mistakes. The greatest teacher is the mistake. So what do you do in that mistake, right? So you didn't call a timeout when you should have, right? We get mad. Have the willingness to be able to be like, man, I should have called that timeout. Reflect on that, right, and grow from it. Don't take it personal. Take it as a step of growth. I've made so many mistakes coaching. How I handled people, how I handled situations, how I'm learning the game constantly. It's not a game I grew up with. So, I first introduced it basically through you guys coming into the program. And I'm like, dude, I got to learn this game. And I fell in love with it. And, years later now I have the privilege to direct FCA Lacrosse South in Alabama. And, I got a lot to learn, right? I don't know everything. But I lean into what I do know. And I think when you're younger, we come into it feeling like we can't ever make a mistake. I have to know everything. I've played it at an extremely high level. I can execute it on the field. And sometimes that call it arrogance, right? A little bit. It's just not knowing, right? You have to understand how people operate, how they really work, right? How am I going to teach this without saying, watch me, right? Like I actually break down the skill set, provide environments for kids to fail and not correct them. Let them work through that process. Practice should be a little chaotic, in my opinion. That's where I've seen the best growth is not the perfect practice plan. And there are a lot of coaches I've learned from that they literally tell me that. They're like, if you have a perfect practice, your practice is wrong. Like it needs to be a little chaotic. People need to try to figure stuff out. They're in the wrong place. What do they do? How do they fix it? Especially in lacrosse. fastest game on 2 feet, man. And it's chaotic. You're going to be out of place. What are you going to do? Well, if you're not putting that situation in practice, and I'm constantly correcting that, you're not going to learn. So I think that's finding out when to say, how to say it. Also being open for older coaches that you might admire, right? Like I love Coach Randy. Randy's awesome, phenomenal coach, right? But him being around some of these younger guys makes a huge impact just surely because they can see how he coaches, right? He does serve when he coaches. He's not just barking and screaming and going crazy. He really does care about like the process, teaching the game, saying the little things, not saying when when a lot of people will yell and scream, he'll back off, right? And you're like, that's weird. And then suddenly it's like the next play, hey, Grayson, let's go 4 steps left, push right, and suddenly it's on a clear. He drops underneath, and Randy saw it before, right? And then other coaches going, man, I need to learn this. What's going on? Like, how did he see that before it unfolded, right? And you don't know until you're around it. And the best thing I've seen for me and younger coaches, I would say everybody, is the ability to say, man, I was wrong. And I don't know everything. That's really hard because in our society, we're taught that not to do that. If you look at like Nick Saban and all these great coaches, Roll Todd, by the way.
Roll Tide.
But you look at Nick Saban, right? One of the greatest coaches ever, to be honest. You can't argue that whether you're Auburn or Georgia or whoever you want to be. But he actually is a guy that really commands authority and respect because he knows it's necessary to get the most out of the athletes. But on the flip side of it, he also has that ability to emotionally connect with these kids when they're hurt from a loss. And actually, as an example, point out after a loss, I saw an interview with him and 2 of his best players, and he literally stopped the interview and was like, hey, I want to first, before they leave, tell them how important they are to this program and the work they put in. No one sees it. And I want them to know after this big loss, that they're good, right? They put in the work, and I'm proud of them. That as a coach is huge, right? That when you hear that as a player and it's real and it's authentic, you're like, all the work is worth it, right? Because that athlete is impacted by some coach speaking life into that young man. And then on the flip side of it, demanding excellence, right? And we don't have to all act like Nick Saban because we're not Nick Saban. We have to be who we are, and we coach the way we are. But, for the younger athlete, if I had to say what the younger coach, if I had to say what's the biggest number one thing, be willing to learn. Like have a mindset that's learning, because that growth mindset is going to lead you into great spaces. And that's going to mean you're going to fail.
Yep. And I think that one of the most interesting things about coaching is you're getting immediate feedback. So, I can come up with things in my head, but I want to see how all that matters is how is the team going to respond? How are these kids going to respond to me? And I think earlier in my coaching career, I'm thinking years ago, but I would be really tough on the kids to be really tough, and I'd make them run, and I'd get on to them and all this kind of stuff. And I think there is this interesting balance to have there to where, they respect you, but you're also able to, have fun with them and encourage them, really.
Oh, yeah.
One other thing I was thinking about while you were talking is Coach Nace. One interesting thing I think I've learned from him is usually I'm, preaching to the whole team. Anytime we make a mistake, I'm yelling at the whole team. What he always does, he'll maybe address the whole team throughout the practice, but not as much as he goes one-on-one with the kid. So he'll, if one kid's messing up on the crease or something, he'll stop the practice and walk up to that kid and talk to him directly, which is really interesting to me. Because I think, a lot of times when we talk too much as coaches, it literally just goes in one ear, out the other ear. And until they make the mistake, they can't really, put themselves in that other kid's shoes. So I thought that was interesting. All right, Coach. So how did you get involved with FCA? I actually don't know if I know this.
You probably don't know this story. So shrink it down as best I can. Got out of sports training. Thought I would never really be back in sports, to be honest. Started working with another company. Things were going well. I started feeling really pulled into the ministry, to be honest. I felt that God kind of was pushing me, and I was fighting it for a very long time. And I can look back in my past. As I said, I always wanted to be a coach. But I had a lot of people that have spoken to me when I got out of coaching and kind of got away from that side of it, reflecting on it, right? Because it's something that I loved. Like, I loved lacrosse more than I loved working with kids and sports and sports training specifically, sometimes to a detriment, right? I would put the people that I'm supposed to put first, second. And make a long story short, that forced some situations in my life to where I had to make changes. And so I gave it up, walked away. I started doing some things. Family life got a lot better, to be honest. It was an absolute mess and a chaos, and it happens. But a lot of that was me, and a lot of it was my wife, and thank God, God breathed life into it. And we're happily married. We get in arguments, we fight, but we were 3 days away from a divorce. And God, for whatever reason, said, "Hey, I'm going to show you who I really am." And God spoke into that space and really changed my life. He didn't have to, because he doesn't do it for everybody, and I know that. So I don't want to take it lightly. So I take it pretty serious, putting the things that need to be first. And I do that with our coaches too. Like, all of our coaches hope they know, like, if something's really up, come and talk to us. Let us know. We'll give you space. Wilson will come and run a practice. Mark will run the practice. Like, we want to make sure our coaches are right? Just because of what I've been through. But I got out of it, wasn't even, thinking about coaching. And then I got a pull. I got on a computer and said, "Man, I just feel like I'm going to go in the ministry of something." I typed in on the computer, job, ministry, and I was like, no. I don't want to do this. I don't know if I'm wired for this. And then like a little whisper, "Hey, what about FCA?" Looked in, I said, "Oh, okay." We moved to Georgia, typed in FCA locally, guy's name popped up, started exploring it, and then I found a job offer and with the guy's name. And I called him up and said, "Hey, I don't know why I'm calling you. I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if this will even fit. But I got your name off the internet for a job opportunity." He paused on the phone, literally didn't say anything. And he said, "Hey, man, I haven't put anything in writing about a job in 7 years. I don't know how you found it." I didn't even know there was anything out saying that. And he then went on and said, "Yesterday we were praying for a guy like you. He said, come in tomorrow." So I walked in his office and started going down this road of lacrosse, of FCA specifically. And he said, "What do I want to do?" And I said, "Club space, and I want to do lacrosse because I've heard great things about what they're doing in the program." And he said, "We don't do lacrosse." I was like, "Yes, you do. I know 2 guys that played on the national team." And he was like, "Oh, I don't think so." And he actually looked it up and was like, "Oh my gosh, they've been doing this forever." And some of those guys that have been just crushing it, Dan Britton starting all that, absolutely incredible. Ryan Hornberg and Drew and all those guys just absolutely crushing it. He said, "Sure, you can try it." So I started it there, and that's what led me into FCA and specifically lacrosse, and then moved back to Birmingham, and here I am. So kind of crazy story.
Yep. Yeah, FCA is one of the best brands in club sports, especially in lacrosse specifically. I mean, the Maryland team, they've got a bunch of Northeastern teams. They've got a national team. I think you were telling me they're ranked number 18.
Yeah, so Maryland's program is top 25 in the nation pretty consistently. Drew absolutely crushes it up there. He's doing an amazing job. Glenn Mills is our new national director. He is phenomenal, doing a great job. And then we got Saul up in upstate. Got about 130 teams across the United States right now. And then we have national teams at the highest level. So when we do put together a national team, they usually compete at the highest level. They're top 5 probably, I would say, consistently when we actually put it together, which is kind of cool to be able to see these incredible lacrosse players all play on the same side and see something maybe they never experienced before, where it's not just lacrosse, but hey, we want to make sure we care for you as a person, and God loves you. Whether you believe it or not, it's okay. We're still going to say it, and we're going to try to treat them with respect wherever they're at and love on them. And that's the beautiful thing about FCA, right? Is we want to help everybody and anybody, every coach, every athlete, every family, specifically in the club space. We want to do our part to be able to pour into their lives to make an impact, and that impact doesn't really do squat if it's just me, because Todd's pretty much a moron most of the time. But I've seen God do some magic with the things I fell at, and that's kind of cool. It's a really cool thing.
Yep. And I think another really, really cool thing about this FCA program in Alabama is, the opportunities you have with FCA. So I believe you're putting together a South team, right?
Yeah, we are. That's super exciting, actually. We've done that in the past. So in Georgia, I kind of followed the national team model a little bit, where we really honestly go after the best players that we possibly can. And Alabama is growing. Birmingham's got some good athletes, as you know, some good lacrosse players, but we don't have the base that some of these other markets do. As in just day in and day out, they're getting taught, at school, incredible coaching. So when they come to practice, we're really just trying to plug and play at that higher level, where here we have to spend a lot of time with them because we're just not at that same space. So with the South team, we're looking at probably seeing if we can pull 5 to 6, 7 kids from Alabama to play alongside with South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And then we're looking to go to the best tournaments in the country and compete.
Yep.
And it gives them that exposure that's needed. And it also is going to help these players that, that think they're the best player in the nation, and then realize, hey, you can dodge, you can shoot, but can you work off ball? Can you play defense even when you're in attack play, right? How hard do you really ride, right? And then you see these guys coming out of Maryland and New York and Long Island and upstate and, all over. California's got some great, Texas got some great talent as well, Georgia, and they ride, and it's like a assault, when the ride happens and you see it for the first time, you're like, holy crap, this is a totally different level. I had no idea. And you see some of these kids kind of fade. And then you see other kids that are really good and they just flourish. They're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is awesome. And you see them step up. And then we can get them exposure at the high levels of like you guys both had, to play the D1 or have the ability to play D1 at an extremely high level. It can happen. It is happening here in the South. And we've had some incredible players here in Birmingham. So it's happening, it's growing, but we want to fill that space, right? Where we don't have to have kids traveling 2.5 hours to go play, right? They can play in their backyard, 30 minutes, an hour drive. And then they step on the field and they're getting the coaching they need, right? And the push and not what they want, but what they need. And that's something that's really, really important, is to constantly focus on the process of getting better, each player and as a team. And it's not easy to do. And I ask a lot of our coaches, and they step up and do an incredible job with that purpose in mind, right? And that's one of the reasons we want to build a curriculum down here in the South, to where we can, from the very young kids, have a literal built-out process where they go to high school and have everything kind of designed for them, so that they can step into anybody's team and play, right? It's not just a system. It's a flow that comes out of those systems, and they're able to go up north and know the lingo and understand what's asked of them and understand what moving a ball really is and working off ball. But that has to be done and built, and our coaches are getting behind it. We're getting some great people to speak into the space and some great coaches that are pouring into our program that I think is going to take us to the next level. And you two guys are part of that.
Yep. And the other thing I'd definitely like to think about is there's levels to the game. There are absolutely levels to the game.
It's like,
You know,
It's way up. Yeah,
and the crazy thing is, Georgia, Florida, our neighboring states, Tennessee's got some really good teams.
Right.
But I mean, lacrosse is extremely competitive. I mean, like there's, if you're going to start going to some of these tournaments and, like the South teams going to a very, very big tournament. But, I would just encourage, if we're talking to Alabama guys, you probably hadn't seen this level of competition yet. And so it's the amount of time that you're going to need to put into the sport and into training and diet and, really dialing in the IQ. I mean, it's, we're ready. We've got some great guys who are bought in, but I mean, it's, you hadn't seen anything like it yet.
Right. I mean, we think about it on football, right? We all love football. I love watching football. I'm a football fan, right? We grow up watching it. We grow up throwing the ball around outside. To be good at lacrosse, that's what they do. Right? They're watching the game. They're seeing the game change. The game is literally changing by the year. New concepts, old concepts that haven't been used. Long dodges are now back into the game, where it used to dominate. Probably when you were playing, long dodges was like it. And then they were kind of sort of removed those long dodges. And now they're putting it back in, because the game's constantly moving and rotating. Defenses are changing. Offenses are changing. Speed of play is better, which forces the game to change, just like football. So we have to be willing to make those changes and have to be willing to kind of push the envelope a little bit in some of this stuff, but also stay found on the fundamentals. And everybody wants to know, how do I learn how to do a BTB and all these things, just the basic stick skills, right, that we think of. But if you don't know how to really throw and catch well, you can't do any of the other stuff, because the fundamentals are, without the fundamentals, you can't build creativity.
Yep.
Everybody wants to know, I want to be creative. Okay. You've got to be fundamentally sound first. You can't be creative if you don't have the stick to be creative. Right? You can't be creative unless you have the fundamentals of knowing that's a space I can dodge into. If you don't know that and you don't have the fundamentals, you're not going to be able to shoot. Right? So the fundamentals are literally the foundation of everything we do in the game. If you're not good at ground balls, you're not good at throwing and passing, you're not good at actually cradling in weird spaces and situations. How are you going to dodge on somebody and then go around the back? Yep. That's stupid, right? If you're not fast enough, why are you doing it? Right? Just stay basic. Move the ball, do it right. So foundation, and then creativity happens. And that's why you see people up north tend to be the most creative. Their fundamentals are the best. The Canadians, right? Some of the most creative players I've seen, what I've learned, just crazy, crazy stuff. And you're like, why are they doing this? Because they're fundamentally the best in the game, right? So if we can match both of those, that's when you become great. And that's what you see like with Brandon O'Neill and some of these great players. They've mastered I would say mastered, they would say they haven't at this point in time, but they've mastered the basic fundamentals of the game. And they're able to execute with their athleticism, and it's a neat process.
Yep.
That's the beauty about lacrosse, man. It's like fast, high scoring, super physical. You got to have self-control. You can't play the game because you get hit and we just say soak it and go, right? Like, what sport's like that? You know what I mean? And so if there's a flag, it's like you're not telling a guy in football, be like, hey, man, just stop. Don't get offended. Just move on, right? How cool is that? The game's actually based off of honor. It's supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great game. Great game. I mean, I think it incorporates a lot of sports and a lot of different movements. I mean, it's extremely well-rounded, So, all right, Coach. So I know you're extremely involved in the girls' game in Birmingham. I know FCA's got a phenomenal girls program because y'all have a ton of girls out there through middle school through high school. So tell me a little bit about the girls program.
Yeah, that's the girls game to me is, more finesse, to be honest. It is physical, even though it's supposedly not contact. That's not true. But if any refs are out there and see this, I don't teach my girls to play contact. But we're going to play hard. We play physical. We play fast. Girls game is just a different animal. It's not even like softball, baseball. It's It's hard to kind of explain in that sense, but the game is different. The ball moves really fast. It should, if we're playing it right. So the game is just, growing. The girls' opportunities are massive just because of the way it's set up in college. So, as I tell a lot of these girls, hey, if you want to play a sport in college, lacrosse, if you get into it, learn it, and get the fundamentals, and you're an athlete, there's opportunities where you're fighting for scholarships where guys would dream of that space, if we're going to be honest. So there's a huge opportunity, and the girls, operate a little differently in the way they coach. They ask questions, and that's one of the first things I started going. I set a drill up, and girls are like, "Why are we doing this?" And I'm like, "What? Wait, that's kind of disrespectful." And then I would realize that no, it's not. What they want to do is they just want to understand the process, right? Once they understand the process, they're freaking locked in. They go. Where guys will tell them they'll line up in the drill, and then half the time they won't run the drill correctly because they didn't pay attention, right? Well, both of those are super irritating, right? But that's the difference in the guys and the girls in a lot of ways, in my opinion, at coaching them, right? And the girls' game's exploding down here for us with FCA. The girls are really solid. They're getting a lot of girls that are coming out. They're enjoying the game. They're having fun. Hopefully we're teaching them well to know it. But man, it's awesome. I thought I would never be in this space, and was drug into it in Georgia, and had to learn the whole game. And I mean, from nothing, and did it because that's the doors that were open. And now I love it. It's awesome.
Yep, it's a great game, and y'all do a great job coaching them. I mean, y'all got a lot of girls.
Yeah, it's growing, right?
It's a lot.
It's kind of crazy.
I know, and they all show up to practice. They're not.
Yeah, they actually work.
Yeah,
they do the work. They lead well, right? But to go back into it, the guys and the girls, there's a hunger, man. When we're on the field and we can see it, and there's little glimmers, of just this hunger to be good at the game, but just the hunger to be treated and spoke to in an appropriate way, of bringing life into some space instead of darkness, right? And for whatever reason, God's using this as a platform to reach people, and it humbles me. How can God? I put God in a box all the time, which I should never do. Especially being in the ministry, I shouldn't even say it out loud, but I'm going to be honest, right? We have a tendency to want to put him in a box and be like, why would God use a stick to change someone's life? And the beautiful thing is, and I've been in this only for about 6.5 years, is to see literal lives changed because they came out to a lacrosse field to learn the game of lacrosse, and through that stick, they were introduced to a great God, and made God does what he does, not me, not Wilson or Mark or Coach Nace or any of us. But God will literally step into that space, and that's what brings me to my knees. That's why I do what I do. Is those little pieces of gold that you get to see, and they love the game, and they're good at it. You know what I mean? But the bigger picture is the game's going to end. Where are they going to be after that game ends? And I know I preach a lot about it, but it's what I believe. It's something that's, if that was taken away from me, I wouldn't coach. Not anymore.
Yep.
I would do other things.
Yep. And I think one of the coolest things, so we were talking about this in one of the huddles, but the Bible is very, very, very action oriented, and telling you how to live and what to do on this earth, and like God's guidance in your life. It talks about heaven a lot, and a lot of people just, salvation, I'm going to be in heaven. That's first step, obviously, but God wants to work in your life. And I think, a great thing about lacrosse, and kind of, I guess, my heart and our heart for FCA is competition, and Paul, likens life to, a race. And so we're all running a race. And I think, trying to draw as much out from these kids in this, competitive spirit, and trying to win and do the best that we can, and, become a great lacrosse player, become a great athlete, become a great teammate, all those things. And I think it's extremely important to carry those things because, when you're, in middle school, developing those traits, it's gonna stay with you. When you're my age, when you're, 27 years old, when you're 45 years old, when you're 65 years old, you can't forget those things, and they're deep down inside of you. And so that's one thing we really encourage with the players.
Yeah, it's really cool to see, that, I mean, take it from, I'll just pivot the whole thing, right? Like, you played with the national team. You were in Vail, I think, and Placid, or just Vail?
Both.
Okay, so you had both of the major ones, right? What impact, if you can think about it, what impact did that have on your life the first time you stepped on an FCA? Like, what was your first thought, which is be fair and honest, right? Which was good. And then tell me after you came back from, let's say, that first time out in Vail, right?
Yeah. I mean, FCA, number one was I was drawn to the competition. So all these guys, I mean, it's
right. It's a loaded team.
Flat out. I mean, these guys are wanting to win, and everybody's getting recruited and all that kind of stuff. And that's what's exciting about lacrosse is, when you start to become good, I mean, it's big time,
That's awesome.
You're experiencing competition. And so that was that part of it, but it was a Christian type competition. It wasn't this like, you see some of these, like, I don't want to dunk on Coach Prime's team, but they're a little out there. But you've got, FCA's very Christian oriented competition. And so those guys are working extremely hard. But then, now that I think about it years later, just the simple things of coaches pouring into our team, pouring into me, and, they take us out for an event. They do, a simple message, but I'm telling you, nobody will ever forget that. And that's what's so important is, these coaches and other teammates and other dads that are Christians, it's a lasting impact.
Yeah. And I actually have a story, and we were training at sports medicine, and you come walking in, and I was sitting behind the rack, cleaning rack, and you came over, and I was like, man, how'd the weekend go? Like, how was it? And you were like, I'm telling you, dude, it was incredible. And I literally was puzzled, because I didn't see that side of it. This was years and years ago. And I was like, really? Like, they're good, huh? And you were like, dude, they're freaking disgusting. This team is phenomenal. And not just that, it's just an incredible experience. And then immediately I walk off, you go to train like you do well, right? By the way, from a tournament in Vail, next day, training, right? Okay. So no coincidence on those things to get good. And I walk over to your dad, and I talked to him, and he literally was like, anything they do, you need to be a part of. And that simple thing marked me in the sense of going, wow, this is awesome. Like, it can be done at a really high level. It can be done to where I know Wilson, I know his family really well and respect him. And it made an impact, like, on him. Like, it literally made an impact. And I was like, dude, that's something I want to be a part of, which is kind of crazy if we're going to be honest about it. Here I am now working for FCA Lacrosse, right? And FCA here locally, but my specific role is with lacrosse, which I'm grateful for. So it's kind of weird how all those things kind of work together. And we're sitting here now talking, and I have the privilege of having you coach and help us figure things out for the club and your brother. And it's pretty incredible how God works, to be honest. I don't think there's a coincidence in that. I think that there's divine stuff going on, and also makes me think, man, how cool is this? God's got something planned, so we're kind of on that precipice right now where I'm like, I don't know. It's got to be God. But man, if he chooses to, man, watch out. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this could be something special, possibly, I'm not trying to overreach or anything like that, but how cool is it? What's already happened just here locally. And man, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, we're just scratching the surface on these kids and the families, and just barely, it's like people are still, I didn't even know FCA was here. There's a ton, right? We have 1,100 families play lacrosse in Birmingham. That's our field. we're just barely scratching the surface. And we got a long way to go, and we want to develop it and keep growing. And, it's not about being the best. It's about being the best version of ourselves, pursuing that process, and everything else takes care of itself, right? If God gives us 2 teams, great. If he gives us 15 teams, great. Hey, let's execute, like you said, right? The Bible talks about actions too, right? Timothy's very clear. Yes, our first step is salvation without a question, right? But because you got that salvation, it produces in us, it wells up this stuff that wants to come out in time when we really start growing closer to God. That's just, hey man, it's more than just salvation. It's salvation, but man, how cool is it that he does that for everybody? And it gets to a point where you just can't stop talking about it at times, right? You're seeking that space out. I was talking to a friend of mine, Rick Burgess, and he said, made something that kind of impacted me. He always would say, I used to talk to people about football all the time. He goes, now I talk to people about football so that I can share the gospel with them. And he's like, it's a total heart change. And that's all God, right? And wherever we're on that process, we're constantly being worked into something. And we make mistakes, and we move forward, and we make mistakes, and we move forward. But God's still doing work inside of us, and that's a pretty cool thing to be a part of.
Yep. Coach, how many teams are we up to?
So this fall, we've got 6 this fall. We had 8 in the summer, and locally it's going to flex. Summer's going to be always bigger. So we've got a 34 team, 31, 29 high school girls, 2 girls teams, and we're looking to grow. This summer, our plan is to be able to probably go 35s, 34s, 32s, or 33s, 31, a 29, I think is a good look. And then we'll have a 27 and hopefully a 28 on the guys' side. Girls, we're looking to hopefully go high school, middle school, and elementary. There's just not as many numbers to be able to produce every class. So we're looking to do that for the summer. So yeah, I mean, it is growing. If you're out there and you want to play with us, let us know. We need you.
Please. Yeah, definitely.
We need you.
Yeah. I mean, we're very excited. And I think we've got phenomenal coaches. I think we got some great young coaches who are doing great things in college right now, and excited to come back. So, and we've got some great older coaches.
Yeah. I mean, the true fact is, the coaching situation, I think, is getting really good. A lot of the coaches not only just care about the game, they care about the people involved, which is not a small thing to ask of and to find, to be honest. It's very difficult to find coaches that not only just love the game, but actually want to do it in a way that's going to be God-honoring. Not perfect. We don't have perfect coaches. We don't have perfect people. We're not, by the way. We're saved by grace alone, but we make a lot of mistakes. But, man, our coaches are pretty solid. I mean, we got guys like played at Brown, UNC, Syracuse, Sacred Heart, down to Montevallo to, UAH to Tusculum to we got them from all over the place. Lander. So we're getting them from kind of everywhere, and we're looking to grow that space too. If you're an interested coach, have a skill set, which we ask, of coaching lacrosse and understanding, hey, we need to follow a process when we coach. You're not going to run wild with your team. You're going to run the process because it's going to help your team. And we have coaches that lean in, and now we have coaches that coach coaches, that's the big part, right? To have access coaches, some of the younger coaches or some of the older coaches that need some information can lean in and be like, Coach Nace, can you tell me this? Or Coach Mark, can you help me out with this drill? Or Wilson, can you help me with this? And even every once in a while, I might help, which isn't going to bring a lot, but we'll see what we can do.
Yep. And I'd say I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is because, literally, my entire passion is seeing helping kids that want to be great. I mean, I tell Coach Todd this all the time. we're all starving for kids that want more, and I'll do it. I literally have offered for free to go out to the fields a couple times a week. And believe it or not, it's kind of harder to get than you'd expect to get outside coaching. But like, we want to do everything for those kids. I mean, we want to see them chart the same path that, we've charted and, play in college and all that kind of stuff. But what I really appreciate about our program is we've developed, I guess for my team specifically, great relationship with the dads. And we're able to tell them, like, look, here's some major flaws in his game. And then, we give them some stuff, here's some things to do. And then, they go work on it and we see huge improvement.
Yeah. And it started, I mean, you and Mark have done a great job outside of the program doing those things. And that's how you get good, right? And people always say, is this an FCA thing? I'm like, sort of. Just go do whatever they're doing, right? Get out to them. If you don't play for us, you need to get out to these sessions. They're open to everybody. We push our FCA guys there, but they're open to everybody, right? We're here for everybody. Even if you don't play for us, that's fine. But we'd love to have you come out and try out and get involved in these coaches and see what's out there. But even if you choose to play for somebody else and there's a space we can help you with, we want to help you. I mean, genuinely, that's what we want.
Yep.
I'm not going down the path of, doing what a lot of clubs do. And that's not talking about a specific club or any clubs across the South. There's incredible people involved in the game of lacrosse and incredible clubs. And sometimes they're going to do a better job playing for somebody else. But that doesn't mean I don't care, right? And our coaches, I tell them that even if it hurts their feelings every once in a while, like, I know a kid went and played at that club, but we're going to be what we're supposed to be. Yep. And when you see him, you're going to be nice. You're going to speak into him. You're going to speak life into him. You're going to pour into him. It also means if we see a kid that's doing really well, we're not going to be honest, we're not going to not go up and be like, hey, man, have you ever thought about playing for FCA? I'm not pushing you. I just want you to know we'd love to have you. And if you choose to play somebody else, that's great. Still care for you. Want to make sure it's done well. But we're also not going to go halfway. We're going to go after players. And we're going to do it in a respectful way, not undercutting any club or anything like that. But it is something that I feel like we're in a space to be able to do, to where if we see a need, and we want to just mention to a parent or a player, hey, man, I don't know if you ever thought about FCA, but we'd love to have you. I think it's being wise, right? Because I believe in what we do. I actually believe in the product we have. If I didn't, then I would just be here for the money. And as you know, Club Space has a lot of money, but not in ours. We keep our rates pretty low in comparison because we are a mission. But I also want to make sure we pay our coaches right. We take care of who we need to take care of. And we do a lot of things for our players that other clubs don't do because of the way it's set up. I'm literally a missionary in a sense, right? So the club doesn't actually, no fees go to me. Very minimal, right? What they go to is our coaches and actually building the club out. And so it makes us a little different in that space. But don't misunderstand when I say that. Don't think we're going to play soft. We are going to come after you when we play you. And if we lose, we're going to shake your hand and ask you to pray with us. If we win, we're going to shake your hand and ask you to pray with us. But we are not here to play soft lacrosse and just be this situation where it's everybody plays all the time. And it's not, we're here honestly to get better, and we step on a field with a purpose to win. If we don't, we want to honor God no matter what, win, lose, or draw. But don't misunderstand. If you're pounding us right now, our goal is not to keep it to where you keep pounding us. We are going to get better, and we're going to come after you. And that's the way it should be. I mean, so
it's healthy competition. I mean, it's great competition. And I think, both teams, I mean, it can be completely okay to have great competition. I mean, anywhere else, I mean, it's Vestavia versus Briarwood. It's Mountain Brook versus Vestavia. It doesn't matter. It's healthy competition. We all like the coaches that we coached against. Oh, yeah. We're all friends. We don't care, but when it's on the field, like it's go time.
But that's the way it is in all these, like being around college coaches, and they actually don't. They're not as crazy sometimes as the fans are.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's their literal job, and when they lose, sometimes they lose their job. Right. But they still have friendships with all these other coaches everywhere.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just a different, it's totally like even the players, like you lose a game, you guys have all lost a game to somebody and you wanted to beat the crap out of them. But a couple of those guys are still your friends.
Oh, yeah.
And that's important.
I know. Remember. We were talking the other day. I think Kirby, Sark, and Kiffin are in a group text together.
Yeah, but you never think that because they just mess with each other constantly.
Exactly.
Right? And they compete and they want to kill each other.
Exactly.
One of them might be cheating or not. Maybe not. I don't know. But we'll just roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Well, Coach, anything else?
No, I think it's great. I appreciate you letting me on. It's always cool to talk about lacrosse, talk about my faith, what we believe in. Love being able to partner with you guys. For what we do, for our mission. I'm excited what's ahead. I think God's got a lot of cool things ahead.
Yep.
Definitely does for you and your brother.
Well, Coach, we need to get some like film session or draw up some offenses or something.
Yeah,
produce some educational stuff.
Yeah, we would love to do that. We're bringing people in to help us with that. We've got a cool tournament this weekend with Casey Powell's coming into town. As many of the teams we can get in, we got in. To it, and then hopefully we get some big things coming around the corner to help coach our coaches too, to bring people in. So yeah, we're constantly trying to grow.
Awesome.